With a ton of movement over the last couple of weeks, same faces in new places, let's have a little bit of fun here and take a look at my top 24 updated post-free agency running back ranking. The NFL draft is going to be here before we know it, and some of those draft picks are going to change the way rosters look and the way we think about how teams will operate. But before then, let's have a little bit of fun and let's take a look at what the top 24 running backs may look like when we get to draft season now that free agency is over. And with all the moves that have been made in free agency, a bunch of running backs being in new places, the rankings are going to look a whole lot different than they did a year ago or maybe even several weeks ago. But let's fire up the discussion in the comments below. Let me know about the players that you think that were maybe a little too high, maybe a little bit too low. Is there anything that you agree with? Is there anybody that's missing that you feel like should be added? Because rankings, especially this time of the season, are always tricky given how things change so quickly. But let's kick it off with the king of fantasy football in 2023, my RB1, Christian McCaffrey. Nothing has changed with Christian McCaffrey. The team around him is exactly the same, and this could be another dominating season for the running back that carries the San Francisco offense. The only question about having him at number 1 overall, and if you're drafting him number 1 overall, would be, do you think he holds up for a full 17-game slate after his workload last year? At number 2, I'm going with Bijan Robinson. No more Arthur Smith, the best quarterback that they've had since prime Matt Ryan, and they've also got a coaching staff that has essentially said, we want to roll with our studs, and Bijan is one of them. I'm expecting a ton of volume for Bijan, a better offense, a more consistent offense, and some really, really good numbers for my RB2 heading into 2024. At number 3, Breece Hall. He's going to have Aaron Rodgers back, and hopefully he looks like the Aaron Rodgers of old coming off that Achilles tear, but the Jets need like one more wide receiver. They need just a little bit more help to really open up the game for Breece Hall. But even with that being said, the end of Breece Hall's 2023 was absolutely fantastic, and that was with a bunch of quarterbacks that we found in the Goodwill box for 25 cents. At number 4, Kyren Williams. This dude got a ton of volume last season. Sean McVay likes one running back. He is not a guy that typically is going to run a committee out there, and Kyren Williams played absolutely fantastic. He was super efficient and had all the volume that we wanted. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, let's keep our fingers crossed that they stay healthy all season long. This Rams offense looks really, really good, and Kyren Williams benefits it in terms of volume, touchdown, and big fantasy numbers. I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor at number 5. He looked good when he was actually healthy last season. No more Zach Moss to compete with him for touches, even though when Taylor was healthy, Moss wasn't really doing anything anyway. And Anthony Richardson being back next year, hopefully 100% healthy for a full 17-game slate, will make this backfield one really, really tough to keep an eye on. Michael Pittman is back. This is a deep wide receiver class to maybe add another option on the outside to help keep the pressure off on the passing game. Jonathan Taylor, he should be in for a good season as long as he stays healthy as well. I'm going to put Jahmyr Gibbs in here at number 6, and I thought I was going to be a little bit high on him, but I'm actually a couple of spots lower than the consensus rankings, and that's okay. Jahmyr Gibbs to me is a guy that is going to have an explosive season. We saw multiple top 5 running back finishes for him at the end of last season after he really started to pick up and take off at the end of the year. David Montgomery is still going to get his. He's still going to get a decent amount of rushing attempts plus red zone carries. He's going to snipe some touchdowns away from Jahmyr Gibbs, but Gibbs is an absolute beast and a weapon that Detroit has to utilize to make this offense one of the best in the NFL. At number 7, Saquon Barkley. Now, I talked about it in my free agent videos when it came to Barkley and the breaking news that he was signing with Philadelphia. I believe this is a good fit for Barkley. I believe it's a good fit for Philadelphia. From a fantasy perspective, I just don't know if the upside will be there that a lot of people expect to be. And the biggest reason for that is, number 1, Jalen Hurts is going to get a ton of goal line opportunities. He's absolutely going to steal touchdown potential away from Saquon Barkley. We're talking maybe about 50% of the goal line touches being sniped away from Barkley at that point. And that stinks for his upside because you might only find him scoring anywhere anywhere between 8 to 10 touchdowns when you realistically could be expecting more than 10 with Saquon Barkley in this offense. Also, from a standpoint of the passing game, I don't think Barkley's going to get the type of passing workload that he saw earlier in his career with the Giants. You've got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Your receiving core is way too good to be giving Saquon Barkley 7, 8, 9 targets a game. Could he get 3, 4, 5? Absolutely. But missing a lot of that passing work and missing those rushing touchdowns is what would keep him from being a top 5 running back to keeping him in the bottom half of the RB1s. Derrick Henry landing in Baltimore could not have been a better fit. And maybe Derrick Henry doesn't see the type of seasons that we're used to, where the guy's running for 1,700, 1,800 yards, but the touchdowns with Baltimore are absolutely going to be there. Now, Lamar Jackson at the goal line is not utilized the same way that Jalen Hurts is at the goal line. So because of that, the goal line touchdowns for Derrick Henry are much more likely than what they are for Saquon Barkley. Now, a lot of people are going to look at Henry and say, he's taken too many hits. There's way too many miles on the tires, so things like that. And I understand why you might be thinking that, but this is a rejuvenated Derrick Henry that is with a winning football team with a chance to go get a Super Bowl ring before he calls it quits. He's the only running back worthwhile there right now. There's not going to be anybody stealing touches from him. He's going to be getting a really, really good workload. And of course, he's going to get those high leverage touches at the goal line as well. So maybe Derrick Henry only rushes for 1,200 yards this year, but maybe he adds 10, 11, 12 touchdowns. Travis Etienne at number 9. And already this offseason, Doug Peterson has said that they want to reduce Travis Etienne's touches to hopefully keep him healthier for the entire 2024 season. And that's okay. A reduction in touches is not necessarily a bad thing for Travis Etienne, because he could see a reduction in touches and still be one of the top league leaders in touches. That's how many he had last season. The biggest thing for me with Travis Etienne is the hope that he gets back to better efficiency that we saw in 2022 instead of the drop-off in efficiency that we saw in 2023. Gabe Davis signing in Jacksonville was a really, really good move. It's going to keep things open and spread out for Travis Etienne to work up the middle, and hopefully the offensive line does their part. At number 10, Isaiah Pacheco. And this is also an offense that signing Marquise Brown is going to see a little bit of a step up in terms of the way defenders have to stay spread out and keep an eye on all of the receiving weapons that they will have there. Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, adding Marquise Brown is going to lead to a lot of potential for one of the hardest running backs to bring down in all of football, Isaiah Pacheco. Rachaad White from Tampa Bay, and Jake and I are on agreement. We feel like Rachaad White could be one of the biggest bandwagon players in all of football, and people aren't going to necessarily be looking at the correct stats when trying to figure out whether Rachaad White can replicate what he did last season. I'm going to keep him inside the top 10. Having Baker Mayfield re-sign with Tampa Bay was really, really good for Rachaad White. But for Rachaad White to take the next step for me, he's got to get more efficient and he has to become a better running back. As a pass catcher, he's doing good. His volume dependency, he's not doing that bad, but he's got to get better with his efficiency if he's going to take the next step. Josh Jacobs at number 12, and this is a guy that I would like to go a little bit higher with, but I do believe that Green Bay is going to be throwing the ball an awful lot. So that just brings Josh Jacobs down just a little bit for me, even though I could see him going a little bit higher than White, Pacheco, or even Etienne, depending on the workload they get. So Josh Jacobs for me right now is going to be back at 12. We'll see what the Green Bay Packers do in terms of a backup running back to help him out, because they'll have to add somebody else before the season gets here. But I definitely think Josh Jacobs has a little bit of a wider range of outcome, going all the way up to potentially 7 or 8. At number 13, one of the most explosive running backs in all of football last year, Devon Achane from the Miami Dolphins. Now, you're going to notice by the time the top 24 rankings are done that you're not going to see Raheem Mostert. And there's a couple of reasons for that. And don't think I hate Mostert, because he was one of my top sleepers to own last season. And there's a lot of fantasy football champions out there that are happy to have had that information. But for Devon Achane, I just think that he's going to take a little bit larger of a workload from Raheem Mostert this year. And for Mostert, after having a career year in terms of production and volume, I don't know if he necessarily stays healthy for a full year once again. And that's one of the reasons why Achane isn't quite inside my top 12 like a lot of other people out there, because Achane experienced his own issues last year when it came to health, but we're going to keep him just outside the top 12 right now, even though he might see a pickup in production. I don't think the insane efficiency that we saw last year is something that keeps up either. Kenneth Walker at number 14. It will be interesting to see what this new Seattle offense looks like with a new coaching staff. The offensive coordinator coming from Washington. And if you watch Washington last year at the college level, they love to spread it out and they love to throw the football with 3 or 4 wide receiver sets. That could end up being good for Kenneth Walker's efficiency, but it could end up hurting the volume just a little bit, and you still have Zach Charbonnet there as well. Ramondre Stevenson at number 15. Do I think Antonio Gibson signing in New England hurts Ramondre Stevenson? No, not really, but I am going to be a little bit cautious with Stevenson and keep him just a little bit further down until I see what New England does at the quarterback position. If they end up nailing it in the draft, maybe Stevenson goes a little bit higher, but until then, we'll keep an eye on it, and we're going to keep him right here at 15. Alvin Kamara at number 16 was really bad as a runner last season. Efficiency-wise, one of the worst performances that I've ever seen from Alvin Kamara. The biggest thing for him was the fact that he got so many dump-off targets. If that keeps up consistently in 2024, Alvin Kamara is a top 12 running back. But if those were to back off at all, and he can't get that efficiency back, we're looking at a guy that's more around 15, 16, 17 than an RB1. David Montgomery at number 17 is going to land here because another 1,000-yard season is absolutely in the cards for him. 9, 10, 11 touchdowns, absolutely still in the cards for him. We've got 2 running backs in Detroit that put up 10 plus touchdowns and 1,000 plus total yards in a season together for the first time in NFL history. That's a pretty big accomplishment. And as far as that running back by committee tag goes, it really doesn't matter. Both of these guys can get it done. At number 18, Joe Mixon, and I absolutely love the landing spot for him. And we're going to see if Joe Mixon can pick up some of the efficiency that he lost while he was in Cincinnati. And I think you're going to see a new Joe Mixon ready to prove a lot of people wrong on a team that he feels like can go a long way. It would not surprise me if Houston and Cincinnati are not playing for a chance to go to a Super Bowl by the end of the year. In number 19, I think there's going to be a lot of people that would like to argue DeAndre Swift should be higher. And I get that. The potential for him in the Chicago Bears this year is through the roof. Now, at number 1 overall, we expect it to be Caleb Williams, but who knows? Maybe they end up pulling a fast one on us and go with somebody else. And while I like his potential upside, there's health-related questions that you always have to ask with DeAndre Swift. You have to hope that this offense performs especially well with the coaching staff that just didn't seem to be able to tailor their offense to their quarterback last season, and the hope that they can get more creative with their play calling and have a more explosive offense. The better Caleb Williams is, the better DeAndre Swift will be. The offensive line is also going to be a really big question, though. Aaron Jones at number 20 is going to be a dangerous running back this year. Now, coming off a season where he missed quite a bit of time to injuries, I am going to be very cautious with him and try not to go too high. I also believe Ty Chandler is going to get a few touches as well, and that's going to keep him from really getting into that high RB2 territory. But we know the playmaking there, we know the explosiveness is there, and we know depending on what happens with the quarterback position this year in Minnesota, they're going to have to rely on the run a little bit more. James Cook at number 21, and after I was so high on him last season, I am bumping him down a few spots this year. I'm like 7 spots lower than the consensus on James Cook right now. And I still like James Cook. I still think he can be a very good running back. But with some of the changes that are taking place in Buffalo, the potential that maybe they end up drafting another running back, there's just a few question marks on whether or not they're really committed to giving James Cook the type of workload that he deserves that would take him higher into the RB2 ranks. James Conner at number 22, when he's on the field, he looks good in Arizona. Arizona could be adding a top wide receiver in the draft, a full season of a healthy Kyler Murray, and hopefully the offensive line is a little bit better as well. They played really tough last year at times, and Arizona was able to run the football with James Conner. If he can stay healthy, he can definitely have RB1 potential, but overall season RB1 potential would not be there unless he can get in 14 or more games. And number 23, Javonte Williams, another another team that we're still waiting to see what will happen at the quarterback position when it comes to the Denver Broncos. You got to think they're going to be aiming to try and get somebody in the draft, and we'll keep an eye on that as that happens. But for Javonte Williams, now that he's a full season removed from rehabbing from that disastrous knee injury a couple of years ago, he should be much more explosive in 2024. And then at number 24, Zamir White. With the way that he played at the end of the season in the absence of Josh Jacobs, he absolutely deserves to be mentioned here, and we'll see if they end up adding anybody in the draft. But Zamir White seems to be the guy right now for the Las Vegas Raiders. He played really, really good at the end of 2023. They might add somebody to back him up, but depending on who they add, Zamir White could be a staple inside the top 24 all year long. Yo, Headliner Nation, there you have it. My post-free agency top 24 running backs. Let me know down in the comments below, guys you agree with, disagree with, guys you wanted to see inside the top 24. Keep it respectful. Let's have a really awesome conversation about it. This is a fun off season so far. Let's keep the fun flowing at 100%. YouTube's going to recommend one of our older videos for you right now. Make sure you check that out. If you missed it, hit the subscribe button and turn on those bell notifications. But I'm going to get out of here. Peace out, Headliner Nation. I'll see y'all in the next one.